Preferably two, but you can ask us whatever you want, or comment whatever you want. Speak up loudly too, please. Yeah, go ahead.
So, was there after the Civil War? Was Harriet Tubman engaged with military actions with the freedmen, or in terms of facilitating construction?
No, she went back. She went to her home. I mean, you know, she was already fairly elderly, so she went to her home in New York.
Yeah. She did do more stuff after the raid. I mean, the Civil War was still on. This was around 1863. And she continued on her scout and spying activities. She had a pass through the Union lines so she could go into the Confederacy to control her scouts, you know, and to do spying herself. But after that, she went she went back home after the war.
Oh, excuse me, just one more thing I really needed to mention. I gave a forum on the legacy of the Black Panthers last night at this museum, and I thought this is just interesting. This gentleman, D.G. Farragut, who was an officer in the Union Army, his response to we showed you the winding river, the Combahee River. Well, that river, by the way, was full of mines and torpedoes. Now, I didn't know, you know, I doubted that there was such a thing at that historical juncture. I was wrong. That what a mine was basically a barrel full of dynamite. And the torpedoes were rather low-tech also, hollowed out trees with dynamite inside of them that would set off when they ran into something. Okay, so that's what they call it. How did Harriet Tubman, well, this gentleman, his claim to fame was, wow, he just said, listen, you know, he said, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. That was his claim to fame. I have to say, I prefer Harriet's approach. She went in the South, and this is the key to proletarian revolution today. Who did the work in the South? That's your slaves. Stop. You're done. Who laid the mines and the torpedoes? The slaves. You talk to the slave, now you know where the torpedoes are. She told them where everything was so that they could avoid that on their trip up the river. Brother, that's so much more to share on this. You know, we can't cover but I thought that in terms of method, who are our social base? The slaves of today, the wage slaves. They hold the answers.
That's right. So, can I ask you?
Speak.
Anytime.
Just speak.
Okay, so how effective was that damn torpedoes, full speed ahead? Did they manage to get through?
No torpedo or mine went off on the ships.
What was the name of that river?
Combahee.
Combahee.
Go ahead, Roger. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Given the historical importance of Harriet Tubman, tell us a little bit about the history of her getting to be proposed to be on a $20 bill in this country. That how did she have that happen? What was the political story?
Well, she actually didn't have very much to do with it.
Obviously.
This was something that was brought up under the Obama administration and was decided under the Obama administration largely by Black Democrats who were, you know, congressional Democrats and Black Democrats. And while I think it is large, there's a practical end, that is her face being on the bill, but it was already decided before the current president sabotaged it. And there's so much to talk about with this part. Your question is, because they actually passed the bill to make that
Yeah, I was
happen.
interested in politics because she replaces Jackson.
That is correct.
Which,
That's right.
Right, exactly.
which is also politically significant.
Very
Mm-hmm.
significant.
Yeah.
So another story and film that made a deep impression on me was The Free State of Jones.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, I mean, it's very important and very hidden from us. The movie was the first time I ever heard that there was open rebellion in the South against the Confederacy. And I'm just wondering if there was were any connections made between Tubman, you know, and the Union and that rebellion.
The abolitionists.
Everybody knows.
The only ones that I read about were the connections that she made with the former persons that were in the Underground Railroad who had the stations or the safe houses. They also worked with her as spies and scouts.
Yeah.
But I don't know about anything like that she ever worked with any group that was in open rebellion, you know, as a group.
Yeah.
Other than John Brown and his group. Other than that, I don't know of any others.
Just to point this out, though, just to add one quick, that is why we need to show those films, this Harriet Tubman, Harriet, Glory, and The Free State of Jones, repeatedly to the young people.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting it
Well,
in
for all
school.
people.
No, they're
Well,
not.
the young
All
people,
people.
particularly.
All
Yes,
the
we are
working
for
class.
cross-generational movements. We are for integrated class struggle. But particularly, the young people don't get it in school. And that's why
We didn't get it. Come on, we didn't get this.
I think we need to turn to the youth, and that's my opinion, okay? But the point being, this was the results, though, of this whole Anaconda program, because the South was attacking its own base just for provisions.
Yeah.
Right.
Finish.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you also again emphasize the post-Underground Railroad experiences of Harriet, because those tend not to be, how should I say, I don't want to even say emphasized, those tend not to be mentioned at all.
Right.
Unless they're kind of like glossed over, like in that film, Harriet. I mean, Harriet deserves another film about that starts at the end of the of Harriet film and carries it through in detail,
Exactly.
because you get a slightly different perspective on her.
Yeah, exactly.
But a lot of persons have kind of like a pacifist view of Harriet, that she was, you know, like a pacifist, you know, and all that.
Lord.
And she was quite. If you look at John Brown. And you look at Harriet, and you look at them as reflections of each other, you get a different perspective.
That's right.
Especially since John Brown is portrayed really out of his Southern view is the one that's portrayed nationally as some kind of crazy guy.
Crazy,
That's right.
Religious fanatic.
The brother over here.
I just wondering if did anybody, you know, in the say in the Confederate government ever figure out that the slaves were their biggest military liability?
Of course.
Did they ever figure this out?
Yes.
Yes.
And what did they?
Yeah. I mean, you get you all the way from Lee to others. They would say that we know. I wish I had the quote from him. It's in one of the books. All right, but it's a quote from Lee and a quote from other Confederate Army officers that do recognize blacks as the weak point in the whole Southern strategy of war.
I was just wondering a little more about what the real strategy was in just burning down or just letting the rice paddies go, you know, and et cetera, and sort of destroying the, I guess it would be the resources on these plantations or farms or whatever. And,
Yeah.
and you know, because I guess I have a sense of maybe it could have been overtaken by the workers or, you know, some other way. The destruction was a little concern of mine, so that's it.
You want to answer that?
Yeah, I understand people's social, you know, I am not antisocial. You know, I've been accused of being bloodthirsty because because I supported you know, the Antifa against the fascists. So people, pacifists think that I'm bloodthirsty. Well, look, here's the point. In terms of being practical, it was not practical in the course of war. It's different if you've already militarily defeated. They were surrounded by the Confederate Army. Surrounded. That's how the Confederate Army fed itself. You cut off the food.
Starve them.
That's right. That changes the whole dynamic. So two things. One, W.E.B. Du Bois in his Black Reconstruction. I was a child when I read it, and so I didn't understand it. I thought that he was silly. And his talking about the black general strike. I said, come on, what are you talking about? These guys didn't get together and vote. No, it was his creative development of Marxism that allowed him to understand that the withdrawal of, conscious withdrawal of their labor from the South, from the slave owners, led to an economic collapse in the South. What is your military ability? It is a coefficient of your economy. You destroy the economy, you destroy the ability to make war. Fuck them. That's the point. And if you're not there, and here's the other, just what he pointed out about the pacifism thing was not a minor thing, because it was in the leadership of the army, this chivalry bullshit and all that, you know, it was very real. Very real. And unfortunately, we have these problems in the left. So there are people that consider themselves leftists, some even think they're socialists, and they are opposed to military action against capitalism. Fortunately, I was in a group called the Black Panther Party. I don't suffer from that illness. But pacifism, I would dare to say that there are more pacifists that identify themselves as leftists in the Democratic Party, and then there are people that have a respect for and understanding of the relationship between military science and successful revolution. Finish.
I think we're finished with, we're going up to 1 o'clock, Gene?
12:30.
12:30.
We're stopping at 12:30. It's 12:30 now.
Time's up.
Thank